Imagine not eating for an entire day. No breakfast, no lunch, no dinner. Just water and your willpower. Sounds extreme, right? Yet millions of people around the world are doing exactly this, claiming it transforms not just their weight, but their entire health. But here's something most people don't know about those two small organs working non-stop every second of your life: your kidneys. Each kidney is only about the size of your fist, but together they filter around 180 liters of blood every single day. That's more than a full bathtub of blood being cleaned every single hour. To put that in perspective, if you poured all that blood into bottles, you'd fill more than 200 of them daily. And your kidneys do this without you ever noticing. Here's the astonishing part that even surprises many doctors: your kidneys receive 25% of all the blood your heart pumps out, more than any other organ relative to their size. Your brain, your muscles, your liver, none of them get as much blood flow per gram of tissue as your kidneys do. So what happens when you stop eating and give these hard-working organs a break? They don't just rest. They begin to repair themselves. And science finally has answers about what really happens to your kidneys when you fast. Before we dive deeper, this is educational content, not medical advice. If you have kidney problems, talk to your doctor before trying any fasting protocol. In this video, we'll walk through each stage from the first hour to day 7 to see exactly what's happening inside your kidneys. What science has discovered might completely change how you think about fasting food and the remarkable intelligence of your own body. Let's start at the very beginning. In the first 12 hours after your last meal, your body realizes no new food is coming. Insulin, the hormone that controls blood sugar, starts dropping. This is the signal your body has been waiting for. It begins shifting into a different mode, one that humans have used for survival throughout our entire evolutionary history. Normally, every time you eat, your kidneys have to work to filter out waste products from digestion. Protein creates urea that must be removed. Salt needs to be carefully balanced. Excess sugar has to be processed. Medications, toxins, and metabolic byproducts all need to be filtered. Your kidneys do all of this 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, without you ever knowing. But when you stop eating, that workload decreases. Think of it like an employee who's been drowning in tasks, finally getting some breathing room. Instead of constantly putting out fires, they can finally take a moment to organize their desk, fix what's broken, and prepare for what's next. Your kidneys are still working during this time. They never truly stop. But they're not under the same pressure anymore. The flood of dietary waste slows to a trickle, and for the first time in perhaps years of constant eating, your kidneys can redirect some of their resources toward maintenance and repair. And this is just the beginning of what happens. From hour 12 to 24, something interesting starts happening inside your body. The inflammatory response begins to quiet down. What exactly is inflammation? Think of it this way. When you cut your finger, the area gets red and swollen. That's acute inflammation. It's your body's way of healing itself, sending immune cells to fight infection and repair damage. This kind of inflammation is good. It saves lives. But there's another kind that's far more dangerous: chronic inflammation. This is like a smoldering fire burning low inside your body day after day, month after month, year after year. You can't feel it. There's no pain or obvious swelling. But this invisible fire slowly damages many organs over time, including your kidneys. Modern life is full of triggers for chronic inflammation: processed foods, constant eating, lack of sleep, stress. Our bodies were never designed for this constant assault. When you fast, your body starts producing less of these inflammatory substances. Research from 2025 showed that intermittent fasting significantly reduced inflammatory cells in kidney tissue and decreased markers of oxidative stress. Oxidative stress is like rust forming inside your cells, and it's one of the main causes of kidney damage over time. In other words, fasting is like pressing a pause button on the inflammation that's quietly harming your kidneys every single day. One important thing to remember here: when fasting, you still need to drink water. Actually, you need to drink more than usual because you're not getting water from food. About 20% of our daily water intake normally comes from the food we eat. Stay hydrated. Your kidneys absolutely need water to function even when you're not eating, especially when you're not eating. Now let's get to the fascinating part. Around 24 to 48 hours after you stop eating, your kidney cells start doing something remarkable. They begin their internal cleanup. Imagine your room. Over time, old broken stuff accumulates. Clothes you don't wear anymore. Electronics that stopped working, papers scattered everywhere. If you never clean up, the room becomes cluttered and hard to use. Eventually, you can barely move around. Your cells are surprisingly similar. Over time, damaged proteins and parts of cells that no longer work well accumulate inside them. Normally, when you're eating constantly, your cells are busy processing new nutrients and don't have the time or energy to clean up. The mess keeps building. But when you fast long enough, cells switch into cleanup mode. They start breaking down and recycling those old damaged parts. This process is called autophagy, which literally means self-eating, but in a good way. Your cells digest their own broken components to create energy and raw materials for repair. Nothing is wasted. Research shows this process is especially important in the kidneys. The tiny filtering units called nephrons contain delicate structures that can become clogged with damaged proteins over time. When autophagy is working well, it clears away this cellular garbage and helps prevent kidney fibrosis, the condition where kidneys become scarred and gradually lose function. Your body has this built-in cleaning system that evolved over millions of years. Fasting just gives it the chance to do its job. Our ancestors triggered this system naturally because food wasn't always available. In our modern world of 24-hour convenience stores and constant snacking, we've accidentally switched it off. Around 48 to 72 hours, your body has completely switched to a different fuel source. Your liver starts producing ketones from stored fat. This is the state many people call ketosis. Many people think ketones are just backup fuel when there's no sugar available, like a spare battery in the drawer. But recent research shows ketones, especially one called beta-hydroxybutyrate, do much more than that. They're like premium fuel that comes with built-in protection systems. Your kidneys are actually very good at using ketones for energy. And when ketones are present in your bloodstream, they don't just provide fuel, they actively help reduce inflammation. They decrease oxidative stress. They may even slow down the scarring process that leads to chronic kidney disease. A 2024 study following 521 patients with polycystic kidney disease, a genetic condition that damages kidneys over time, found something remarkable. Those with higher ketone levels in their blood had slower decline in kidney function over time compared to those with lower levels. This suggests ketones may have a direct protective effect on the kidneys. This is why some researchers now call ketones a superfuel. They don't just provide energy, they send protective signals to your cells, telling them to repair damage and resist stress. It's like fuel that also contains medicine. At this stage, electrolytes become critically important: sodium, potassium, magnesium. These minerals keep your heart and kidneys working properly. When you're not eating, you're not getting these minerals from food, and your kidneys are flushing more of them out as insulin levels drop. If you feel your heart racing or beating irregularly, severe dizziness that doesn't go away, or muscle cramps, those are signs your body is low on electrolytes. Don't ignore these signals. Don't try to push through. If they persist for more than 30 minutes, stop fasting and consult a healthcare professional. Fasting should make you feel better, not worse. Now here's the part that excites scientists the most. From day 3 to day 5, research shows something remarkable starts happening at the genetic level. Your body isn't just repairing old cells, it may be regenerating cells that were thought to be permanently lost. To understand this, you need to know about a special type of cell in your kidneys called podocytes. Podocytes are the unsung heroes of kidney filtration. They sit in your kidney's filtration system wrapped around tiny blood vessels. They have finger-like extensions that interlock with each other, creating a precise barrier that keeps important proteins in your blood while letting waste pass through into your urine. Here's the problem that has frustrated kidney doctors. For decades, some podocytes are extremely hard to regenerate. Unlike skin cells or blood cells that constantly replace themselves, podocytes don't divide in adults. When they get damaged or die, protein starts leaking into your urine. This is called proteinuria, and it's one of the earliest warning signs of kidney disease. Once podocytes are lost, doctors used to think they couldn't be replaced. The damage was considered permanent. This is part of why kidney disease has been so difficult to treat. But groundbreaking research from 2024 from Children's Hospital Los Angeles and USC changed that understanding completely. When scientists fed mice with kidney disease, a fasting mimicking diet, they discovered something that surprised even them. Genes related to kidney development, genes that normally only work when kidneys are first forming in the womb, got switched back on in adult animals. Podocytes started reprogramming and regenerating. The damage that was thought to be permanent began to reverse. And this wasn't just in mice. In a small trial with 13 patients with chronic kidney disease, the kidney protective effects lasted up to 1 year after the intervention ended. 1 year. Just from periodic fasting. This is groundbreaking science. It suggests fasting may help regenerate cells we once thought were permanently lost. The body is far more capable of healing itself than we ever imagined. An important note here, these studies were done under medical supervision. If you have kidney disease, are taking blood pressure or diabetes medications, or have an eGFR below 30, extended fasting could be dangerous for you. People on dialysis, pregnant women, those with a history of eating disorders, or people with kidney stones should not attempt extended fasting without guidance from a doctor. The potential benefits are not worth the risks for these groups. These discoveries didn't appear from nowhere. They're the result of decades of research, and one of the pioneers is a scientist named Walter Longo. Longo was born in Italy in 1967 and dreamed of becoming a jazz guitarist. At 16, he moved to Chicago to pursue music. But there, he noticed something strange that would change his life forever. His relatives in America had the exact same genes as his family back in Italy. Same grandparents, same genetic heritage. But they were suffering from diabetes and heart disease at rates his Italian family never experienced. The only difference was diet. The American relatives ate more processed food, more sugar more frequently. That simple observation sparked a question that transformed him from a musician into a scientist. He gave up the guitar and spent the next 30 years researching nutrition and longevity. He studied yeast, then mice, then humans, always asking the same question: how does what we eat and when we eat affect how long and how well we live. In 2018, Time magazine named him one of the 50 most influential people in healthcare worldwide. His work on fasting mimicking diets is used by researchers and clinics around the globe. His research led to a groundbreaking clinical trial at Heidelberg University in Germany in 2022. This was the first rigorous test of whether fasting could actually reverse kidney damage in humans. 40 patients with type 2 diabetes who already had protein leaking into their urine were followed for 6 months. Half ate a fasting mimicking diet for 5 days each month. The other half continued their normal routine. The results exceeded expectations. The fasting group saw their HbA1c drop from 8.1% to 6.7%. They lost an average of 10 kilograms. And most importantly for our topic today, protein leakage into their urine decreased by 40 to 46%. This was the first time a diet-only intervention showed it could reverse markers of kidney damage in diabetic patients. Not with drugs, not with surgery, not with expensive treatments, just with strategic periods of not eating. By days 5 to 7, if you've fasted safely, to this point, your body reaches a state of deep regeneration. The cellular cleanup system is still running strong. Ketones continue their protective work, and regenerative processes are happening at the cellular level throughout your body. But this is also the limit for most people. Beyond 7 days, risks start outweighing benefits unless you're under close medical supervision. Your body has reserves, but they're not unlimited. The interesting thing is, we have real-world evidence from millions of people who practice fasting every year during Ramadan. This is not a laboratory experiment. This is human experience at massive scale. A 2024 meta-analysis looking at 32 studies with over 2,500 patients with chronic kidney disease or kidney transplants found that Ramadan fasting did not harm kidney function in most people. Some studies even showed slight improvements. One study in the United Arab Emirates followed 31 patients with stage 3 to 5 chronic kidney disease, people with significantly damaged kidneys, and found that their eGFR actually improved from 29.7 to 32.7 milliliters per minute during and after Ramadan. Their blood pressure got better. Protein in their urine decreased. This doesn't mean everyone should fast. Medical conditions vary. Individual responses differ. But it does suggest that for many people, the kidneys are far more resilient than we once thought. So we've walked through the entire journey. From the first hour when your kidneys start getting a break from processing food waste, to the inflammation pause in the first day, through the cellular cleanup that begins around 24 to 48 hours, into the ketone protection that ramps up at 48 to 72 hours, to the remarkable cellular regeneration that scientists are only now beginning to understand. The important thing to remember is this: fasting is not a magic cure for everything. It won't fix advanced kidney disease. It won't replace medical treatment when you need it. It's a tool. A powerful tool that our bodies evolved to use over millions of years. Our ancestors didn't have refrigerators or 24-hour supermarkets. They went through periods without food sometimes, for days at a time. Their bodies developed sophisticated systems to not just survive those periods, but actually repair and strengthen themselves. We carry those same systems in our cells today. We've just forgotten how to use them. Your kidneys are not just filters. They're intelligent organs with the ability to protect and repair themselves if you give them the chance. Fasting is a powerful tool, and that means it deserves respect. Start slowly. Try 16 hours before you try 24. Listen to your body. Learn what the warning signs feel like. And if you want to try fasting longer than 24 hours, talk to your doctor first. This is especially important if you have any existing health conditions. Now I want to hear from you. What surprised you most in this video? Was it the 180 liters of blood filtered daily, the regenerating podocytes, the 40% reduction in protein leakage? Share what struck you in the comments below. And have you tried intermittent fasting? What was your experience? Your story might help someone else who's curious but hesitant to start. Some doctors still worry about fasting and the kidneys. They were trained that 3 meals a day is essential and skipping meals is dangerous. Others now point to research showing fasting may help reverse early damage and protect kidney function. Based on what you learned today, what do you think? If you found this helpful, consider sharing it with someone who cares about their kidney, health, has prediabetes, or has been told their kidneys need attention. This information could change how they think about what's possible. And if you want to understand more about how your body works and what science is discovering about health, subscribe to this channel. We go deep into the biology behind the trends so you can make informed decisions about your own body. Coming up next, the most common mistakes people make when breaking a fast and why how you eat after fasting might be even more important than the fast itself. Get that wrong, and you could undo everything you just accomplished. You won't want to miss that one. Imagine not eating for an entire day. You'd expect to feel tired, sluggish, ready to crash into bed the moment your head hits the pillow. But something strange happens. Some people find themselves lying awake at 2 in the morning staring at the ceiling, unable to fall asleep. Others report the deepest, most refreshing sleep of their lives. Their sleep trackers show heart rate variability at an all-time high, deep sleep percentages through the roof. So what's really going on here? What happens to your sleep when you stop eating? And why does fasting affect people in such wildly different ways? That's exactly what we're going to explore today. We'll look at the science behind these sleep changes, why some people struggle while others thrive, and what you can actually do about it. Before we dive in, remember, this is educational content, not medical advice. If you're considering any fasting protocol, talk to your healthcare professional first. Now let's start from the beginning. In the first 12 to 16 hours of fasting, not much changes with your sleep. Your body is still running on its normal fuel source, which is glucose. Your liver stores glucose in a form called glycogen, and this acts as your backup energy supply. During these early hours, your body simply taps into these reserves. But here's where things start to shift. As those glycogen stores begin to run low, your brain starts paying closer attention to what's happening. Deep inside your brain, there's a region called the hypothalamus. Think of it as your body's control center. It regulates hunger, thirst, body temperature, and yes, your sleep-wake cycle. Within this hypothalamus, there are around 50 to 80,000 specialized nerve cells that produce a chemical called orexin. Some scientists also call it hypocretin. These cells have one very important job. They keep you awake and alert. Now here's the fascinating part. These orexin-producing cells are constantly monitoring your body's energy status. They're tracking your blood sugar levels. They're sensing hormones like leptin and ghrelin, which tell your body whether you're fed or hungry. When everything is normal and you've eaten recently, these cells stay relatively quiet, especially at night. This allows you to fall asleep easily. But when you haven't eaten for a while, when your energy stores are dropping, these cells start firing more actively. They release more orexin into your brain. And orexin is a powerful wake-promoting chemical. It literally tells your brain to stay alert. This is why many people feel unusually awake and energized during a fast, even though they haven't eaten anything. It's not willpower, it's not imagination, it's pure brain chemistry. The discovery of orexin is actually a remarkable story in itself. In 1998, two separate research teams working independently on opposite sides of the United States discovered this chemical within months of each other. Luis de Licea and his colleagues in California found it and named it hypocretin. Meanwhile, Takeshi Sakurai and his team in Texas discovered the same thing and called it orexin. Neither team knew the other was working on the same problem. And neither team realized at the time just how important their discovery would become. Just 1 year later, scientists made another breakthrough. They found that people suffering from narcolepsy, a condition where people can't stay awake and suddenly fall asleep during the day, were missing this exact chemical. Their brains had lost the cells that produce orexin. This confirmed something crucial. Orexin isn't just involved in sleep. It's essential for staying awake. And when you fast, your body produces more of it. But why would your body want you to stay awake when you're running low on energy? Wouldn't it make more sense to sleep and conserve what little energy you have left? This is where evolution provides the answer. Think about a wolf that hasn't caught any prey in 3 days. Its liver is depleted. Its fat stores are being mobilized for energy. Now, if this wolf responded to low energy by sleeping more, by conserving energy, and waiting things out, it would starve to death. Evolution built a brilliant solution to this problem. The same signal that tells the body you're running low on energy also tells the brain to stay alert, to hunt harder, to expand your territory, to keep searching for food. Sleep would be dangerous in this situation. Alertness is survival. Your ancient human ancestors inherited this exact same system. For tens of thousands of years, humans faced regular periods of food scarcity. Those who could stay sharp and focused during these times were more likely to find food and survive. Those who became sluggish and sleepy were more likely to starve. Your brain right now contains the same neural circuitry that kept your ancestors alive. When you fast, you're not fighting against your biology. You're activating an ancient survival program that has been refined over millions of years of evolution. This is why fasting doesn't make you feel tired and weak, at least not after the initial adjustment period. Instead, many people report feeling more alert, more focused, more mentally sharp than ever. Now let's move forward in the fasting timeline. Once you pass the 24-hour mark and continue toward 48 hours, your body undergoes another significant shift. Your liver begins producing molecules called ketones from your stored body fat. These ketones become an alternative fuel source for your brain. Normally, your brain runs almost entirely on glucose. But when glucose is scarce, ketones can step in and provide up to 75% of your brain's energy needs. Here's what makes ketones special. Ketones can cross directly from your bloodstream into your brain through something called the blood-brain barrier. Once there, they provide a very clean and efficient source of energy. Research suggests that ketones produce less oxidative stress than glucose does. This means less cellular damage, less inflammation, and potentially better brain function. This is one reason why many people report feeling mentally clear during extended fasts. The brain is running on a fuel source that burns cleaner and more steadily than its usual fuel. But there's another benefit happening at the same time. Fasting stimulates the production of a protein called BDNF, which stands for brain-derived neurotrophic factor. This protein helps protect your existing brain cells and supports the formation of new connections between neurons. It's essentially fertilizer for your brain. Higher BDNF levels are associated with better learning, better memory, and better overall brain health. and fasting increases its production. So during an extended fast, your brain is receiving clean burning fuel from ketones while also getting a boost of protective proteins. This combination helps explain why cognitive function often improves during fasting, even as total sleep time may decrease. Your brain simply doesn't need as much downtime when it's running this efficiently. But not everything about fasting and sleep is positive. Let's talk about why some people really struggle. When you fast, especially for longer periods, your body needs to maintain stable blood sugar and blood pressure even without incoming food. To do this, it releases stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. These hormones help keep your blood sugar from dropping too low and prevent your blood pressure from falling. This is a normal and necessary response. Without it, you'd feel faint and weak very quickly. But here's the problem. Cortisol and adrenaline are alerting hormones. They're designed to keep you awake and ready for action. When these hormones are elevated, at night falling asleep becomes much harder. There's another piece to this puzzle. When insulin levels drop during fasting, your kidneys start excreting more sodium than usual. You're literally peeing out salt at a faster rate. And when sodium levels drop, your body has to work harder to maintain blood pressure. It does this by releasing even more stress hormones. So you end up in this cycle. Low sodium leads to more stress hormones, which leads to more alertness, which leads to difficulty sleeping. This is actually the main reason why many people have trouble sleeping during extended fasts. It's not the lack of food directly, it's the cascade of hormonal changes that happen when you don't eat. Now let's look at what actually happens to your sleep stages during fasting. Research shows that fasting affects different stages of sleep in different ways. Deep sleep, also called slow wave sleep or NREM sleep, often increases as a percentage of total sleep time. This is the most restorative phase of sleep when your body does most of its physical repair work. Many fasters report that even though they sleep fewer total hours, they wake up feeling more refreshed than usual. Sleep trackers often confirm this, showing improved deep sleep percentages, lower resting heart rates, higher heart rate variability, and lower body temperature during sleep. All of these are markers of high-quality rest. However, REM sleep, the stage associated with dreaming and memory consolidation, may actually decrease during fasting. Several studies have found reduced REM sleep during periods of food restriction. Our REM sleep appears to be sensitive to caloric intake and glucose availability. The practical meaning of this is that your brain seems to prioritize deep, restorative sleep when energy is scarce. It compresses the most essential recovery functions into a shorter period and may sacrifice some of the less critical sleep stages. For short-term fasting, this trade-off appears to work well. Your body adapts, and you still get the rest you need. But this is one reason why very long fasts should be approached carefully and are not recommended without proper supervision. Now, why do some people struggle much more than others, and why does this often get worse with age? The answer involves individual variation and aging. Some people have orexin systems that are more sensitive than others. When energy drops, their brains release more orexin and they become much more alert. This is largely genetic. Some people are simply wired to respond more strongly to fasting. Age also plays a significant role. As we get older, our ability to regulate hormones becomes less flexible. The systems that balance cortisol and adrenaline don't work as smoothly as they did when we were younger. Our glycogen stores tend to be smaller, which means we shift into the fasting state more quickly. And our autonomic nervous system, which controls things like heart rate and stress responses, becomes less adaptable. All of this means that older adults often experience more pronounced sleep disruptions during fasting. The same fast that a 30-year-old handles easily might cause significant insomnia in a 60-year-old. There's also the issue of circadian rhythm disruption. Your body's internal clock is strongly influenced by when you eat. Your digestive system, liver, and many other organs have their own internal clocks that sync up with your eating schedule. When you suddenly change when you eat or stop eating altogether, these clocks can get out of sync with each other and with your main brain clock. This is why some people experience not just difficulty falling asleep, but a complete disruption of their sleep schedule. They might feel tired at odd hours and wide awake at bedtime. The body's internal timing system has been thrown off and it takes time to readjust. So here's the big question. Is sleeping less during fasting actually good or bad for you? The honest answer is that it depends. Research suggests that the reduced sleep quantity during fasting is often offset by improved sleep quality. Many people report that they don't feel tired during the day, despite sleeping fewer hours. This is very different from normal sleep deprivation, where sleeping less makes you feel exhausted and impaired. The key difference is orexin. During fasting, elevated orexin keeps you feeling alert and functional, even with less sleep. During normal sleep deprivation without fasting, orexin levels are not elevated in the same way, so you feel the full effects of the sleep loss. For short-term fasting lasting a few days at most, this appears to be safe and even beneficial for most healthy people. Your body is doing exactly what it evolved to do. It's keeping you sharp during a period of food scarcity. However, this is not something to maintain long-term. Your body still needs adequate sleep for immune function, memory consolidation, and overall health. If you're fasting regularly and consistently getting poor sleep, that's a sign something needs to change. The most important signal to watch is how you feel during the day. If you're sleeping less but feel energetic and clear-headed, your body is likely handling the fast well. If you feel tired, foggy, or irritable during the day, that's your body telling you it needs more rest. Now let's talk about practical solutions. If you're struggling with sleep during fasting, the single most important thing you can do is pay attention to your electrolytes, especially sodium. Remember, when insulin is low during fasting, your kidneys excrete more sodium. This forces your body to release stress hormones to maintain blood pressure, which makes you alert and unable to sleep. By replacing that lost sodium, you can reduce the need for those stress hormones and make sleep easier. During extended fasts, consider consuming sodium through sources like salted water, bone broth, or pickle juice. This simple step has helped many people sleep much better during fasts. Magnesium and potassium are also important. These minerals support muscle relaxation and nervous system function. Magnesium in particular plays a role in melatonin production, the hormone that helps regulate sleep. When these minerals are depleted, you might experience muscle cramps, restless legs, or a general inability to relax. The timing of when you break your fast also matters. Research shows that when you eat your first meal after fasting can affect your sleep that night. Eating very late in the evening tends to disrupt sleep more than eating earlier in the day. If possible, break your fast in the morning or early afternoon rather than right before bed. Basic sleep hygiene becomes even more important during fasting. Get bright sunlight exposure in the morning. This helps synchronize your circadian rhythm, which may already be under stress from the changed eating pattern. Avoid blue light from screens in the evening, and be especially careful with caffeine. Since fasting already puts you in an alert state, caffeine on top of that can make sleep nearly impossible for some people. Consider stopping caffeine intake by noon at the latest. Finally, if you simply can't fall asleep during a fast, don't lie in bed struggling. Get up, do something quiet and relaxing for a while, then try again. Forcing sleep rarely works and often makes the problem worse. If sleep problems persist despite these measures, consider shortening your fasting window. There's no prize for suffering through severe insomnia. Your body is communicating with you. Listen to it. So let's bring this all together. When you fast, your body activates an ancient survival system designed to keep you alert and functional during periods of food scarcity. Your brain releases more orexin, keeping you awake. Your liver produces ketones, providing clean fuel for your brain. Your body releases stress hormones to maintain blood sugar and blood pressure. These changes can lead to less total sleep, but often higher quality sleep with more time spent in deep restorative stages. For many people, this results in feeling more energetic and mentally sharp despite the reduced hours. However, individual responses vary significantly. Genetics, age, and personal physiology all play a role. Some people thrive with improved sleep quality, while others struggle with insomnia. The key is understanding what's happening in your body and working with it rather than against it. Your body isn't broken when you can't sleep during fasting. It's executing a program that kept your ancestors alive through countless generations of food scarcity. By managing electrolytes, timing your meals wisely, and paying attention to your body's signals, you can optimize this ancient system for modern life. Now I'm curious about your experience. Which group are you in? Do you sleep better or worse when fasting? Share your story in the comments. Tell me about your longest fast and what happened to your sleep. I genuinely want to hear from you. If you found this video helpful, make sure you subscribe for more content, exploring the science of fasting and how your body actually works. And if this changed how you think about sleep and fasting, share it with someone who might find it useful. Next time, we'll explore what happens when you break a fast and why the timing of your first meal matters more than you might think for your sleep that night. Until then, take care of yourself. How fasting changes testosterone. What happens to your hormones when you stop eating for hours or even days? Specifically, what happens to testosterone, the hormone most associated with strength, energy, and vitality? Some people claim fasting boosts testosterone. Others warn it will crash your hormones completely. So what does science actually tell us? The answer is more interesting than you might expect. In this video, we are going to explore exactly how fasting affects testosterone step by step, hour by hour. And by the end, you will understand something that most people completely miss about this topic. Before we dive in, this is educational content, not medical advice. If you are considering any significant changes to your eating patterns, please consult with a healthcare professional first. Let us start with the basics. What exactly is testosterone? Testosterone is the primary male sex hormone, though it is important in both men and women. In men, it is produced mainly in the testicles. In women, it is produced in smaller amounts by the ovaries and adrenal glands. This hormone does a lot more than most people realize. It helps build and maintain muscle mass and strength. It keeps your bones dense and strong. It influences your energy levels and mood throughout the day. It plays a major role in sexual desire and function. And in men specifically, it is essential for sperm production. Now, here is something important to understand. Men and women have very different testosterone levels. Men typically have between 300 to 1000 nanograms per deciliter. Women have much lower levels, usually between 15 to 70 nanograms per deciliter. That means men have roughly 10 to 20 times more testosterone than women. But even though women have less testosterone, it's still crucial for their health. It affects bone density, energy, mood, and libido in women too. This video will focus primarily on men since testosterone is often the central concern for male health. But we will talk about how fasting affects women differently near the end. So, when you fast, what happens to testosterone? Does it go up or down? To answer that, we first need to understand how your body produces testosterone in the first place. Testosterone production starts in your brain. Specifically, it starts in a region called the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus produces a hormone called GnRH, which stands for gonadotropin releasing hormone. Think of GnRH as the starting signal. When the hypothalamus releases GnRH, it travels to another part of the brain called the pituitary gland. The pituitary gland receives this signal and responds by releasing another hormone called H, or luteinizing hormone. LH then travels through your bloodstream down to the testicles. Inside the testicles, there are specialized cells called Leydig cells. When LH reaches these Leydig cells, they receive the message and start producing testosterone. The testosterone then enters your bloodstream and travels throughout your body. So the chain goes like this. The hypothalamus sends a signal. The pituitary gland passes that signal along, and the testicles respond by making testosterone. This is your testosterone production line. And it is important to understand because fasting affects different parts of this chain in different ways. There is one more thing you need to know. When testosterone enters your bloodstream, most of it does not float around freely. Instead, it binds to proteins, especially one called SHBG, which stands for sex hormone binding globulin. Only the testosterone that remains unbound, called free testosterone, can actually enter your cells and produce effects. Here is where it gets interesting. Insulin, the hormone that rises when you eat, suppresses SHBG production in the liver. So when insulin is high, SHBG tends to be lower. When you fast and insulin drops, SHBG can change, which affects how much free testosterone is available to your body. Keep this in mind as we go through what happens during a fast. Now, let us walk through the timeline of fasting and testosterone, starting from the moment you stop eating. During the first 12 hours of fasting, not much changes with testosterone. Your body is using up glucose stored in your liver and muscles called glycogen. Insulin levels start to decline, but this is a gradual process. Your testosterone production line continues operating normally. Most people experience this every night when they sleep. You eat dinner, go to bed, wake up 8 to 12 hours later, and your hormones are still functioning fine. So the first 12 hours are really just a transition period. Your body is beginning to shift, but testosterone remains stable. Between 12 and 24 hours, things start to get more interesting. Your glycogen stores are now depleted or nearly depleted. Your body begins switching to fat as its primary fuel source. And several hormones start changing significantly. One of the most dramatic changes is in growth hormone. Research from the Intermountain Medical Center found that during a 24-hour fast, growth hormone levels increased by an average of 300% in women and nearly 2,000% in men. Growth hormone helps protect your muscle mass while your body burns fat for fuel. It is your body's way of preserving what is important during food scarcity. At the same time, cortisol begins to rise. Cortisol is often called the stress hormone, and fasting is a form of stress on the body. Here is the key point. Cortisol and testosterone have an inverse relationship. When cortisol goes up, testosterone tends to go down. Your body is essentially making a choice. Should it invest energy in reproduction and building muscle, or should it focus on survival and finding the next meal? During this phase, survival starts winning. You might notice testosterone beginning to decline slightly, though the changes are still modest at this point. Between 24 and 48 hours, the testosterone decline becomes more noticeable. Research shows that after about 48 hours of fasting, testosterone can drop by 30 to 35% compared to normal levels. LH, the hormone that signals the testicles to produce testosterone, also decreases. This might sound alarming, but here is what most people do not understand. While testosterone levels are dropping, something else is happening. Your testosterone production system is becoming more sensitive. A study published in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism tested this directly. Researchers had subjects fast for 56 hours, then injected them with GnRH, the hormone that starts the testosterone production chain. What they found was remarkable. After fasting, when subjects received GnRH, their testosterone increased 55% more than it did after a normal overnight fast. Their LH response was 64% higher. In other words, the longer they fasted, the more responsive their production line became. The system was primed and ready to respond strongly once it received the right signals. Why does this happen? From an evolutionary perspective, it makes sense. Our ancestors did not have refrigerators or grocery stores. They went through periods without food regularly. During those times, the body needed to conserve energy. Producing testosterone requires resources. Building muscle requires resources. Making babies during a famine is not a good survival strategy. So the body temporarily dials down testosterone production to redirect energy toward finding food and staying alive. But here is the crucial part that most people miss. The body also prepares to ramp up quickly once food becomes available again. The production line becomes more sensitive, ready to respond the moment nutrients return. This is not a flaw. This is intelligent biological design. Your body is not breaking down. It is preparing for something. Between 48 and 72 hours, and beyond, your body enters a deeper state of adaptation. A process called autophagy becomes highly active. Autophagy is when your cells break down and recycle damaged or dysfunctional components. Japanese scientist Yoshinori Osumi won the Nobel Prize in 2016 for his research on this process. During autophagy, your body is essentially cleaning house at the cellular level. Testosterone remains low during this phase. The Leydig cells in your testicles are in conservation mode. But something else is happening that matters for long-term hormone health. Your body is burning fat for fuel, and this has important implications for testosterone. Body fat, especially belly fat, contains an enzyme called aromatase. Aromatase converts testosterone into estrogen. The more body fat you have, the more aromatase you have, and the more of your testosterone gets converted into estrogen. This is one reason why men with obesity often have lower testosterone and higher estrogen levels. When you fast and burn fat, you are reducing the amount of aromatase in your body. Less aromatase means less testosterone being converted to estrogen. This is a longer-term benefit of fasting, especially for men who carry excess weight. The most dramatic evidence of testosterone dropping during prolonged caloric restriction comes from a study on U.S. Army Rangers. During their brutal 8-week training course, these soldiers exercised about 7 hours per day, slept as little as 4 hours per night, and consumed about 1,000 fewer calories than they needed. After 4 weeks of this, their testosterone had dropped to what researchers described as near castrate levels. That sounds devastating. But here is the part of the story that changes everything. When the Army Rangers were finally given adequate food again, their testosterone did not just return to normal. It nearly tripled within a matter of days. The system that had been suppressed and primed during the deprivation phase responded explosively once nutrients were available. This is the refeeding phase, and it might be the most important part of the entire fasting and testosterone story. When you start eating again after a fast, several things happen rapidly. Insulin rises, which triggers other hormonal changes. IGF-1, a growth factor that helps build muscle and other tissues, increases significantly. And the pulses of LH from your pituitary gland become larger and more frequent than they would be on a normal eating day. A 1981 study demonstrated this clearly. Men fasted for 10 days and then ate normally for 5 days. During the fast, testosterone declined as expected. But after refeeding 4 out of 6, men had testosterone levels higher than before they started fasting. One man doubled his testosterone, going from 800 to 1,600 nanograms per deciliter. Research on rhesus monkeys in 1991 found the same pattern. After the monkeys fasted, the larger their refeeding meal, the bigger the pulse of LH and the greater the rise in testosterone. There was something special about eating after a period of not eating that produced a stronger hormonal response than normal eating ever did. Another striking example comes from magician David Blaine, who famously fasted for 44 days in a suspended box over the River Thames in London. This is obviously an extreme case that no one should attempt. But the data is instructive. After his fast ended and he began eating again, his testosterone rose from 449 to 867 nanograms per deciliter in just 10 days. Even after such an extreme deprivation, the refeeding response was powerful. Researcher Walter Longo has explained the mechanism behind this. When you fast, IGF-1 levels drop. This puts your body into what Longo calls auto-repair mode. Stem cells become activated. Then when you eat again, especially when you consume adequate protein, IGF-1 rises rapidly. Those activated stem cells begin replicating and building new tissue. The combination of a sensitized production line and surging growth signals creates the conditions for testosterone to rebound strongly. So fasting and testosterone is not a simple story of up or down. It is a two-phase process. During fasting, testosterone drops as your body conserves resources and primes its systems. During refeeding, testosterone can surge as your body shifts into rebuilding mode. The fasting phase prepares. The refeeding phase builds. You need both parts to get the full picture. At this point, I want to ask you something. Would you rather have high testosterone that your body cannot use efficiently or moderate testosterone, where every molecule hits your cells with maximum impact? Think about that and share your answer in the comments below. There are a few more factors worth understanding. We already mentioned aromatase and body fat. For men who are overweight, fasting can help reduce the aromatase that converts testosterone to estrogen. Over time, this can improve the overall testosterone to estrogen ratio. The relationship between insulin and SHBG also matters. Remember, SHBG is the protein that binds testosterone in your blood. When testosterone is bound to SHBG, it cannot enter cells and do its job. Only free testosterone is active. Research on over 2,800 people in Sweden found a clear inverse relationship between insulin and SHBG. When insulin is chronically high, the liver produces less SHBG. This might sound like a good thing since it means less testosterone is bound. But chronically high insulin comes with its own problems, including insulin resistance, weight gain, and metabolic dysfunction. When you fast, insulin drops significantly. This allows your body to normalize SHBG production and potentially improve your overall hormone profile. The benefit is not just about testosterone levels on a blood test. It is about how efficiently your body can use the testosterone it has. Now let us talk about safety. Fasting, especially extended fasting beyond 72 hours, requires caution. It is not appropriate for everyone. People with a history of eating disorders should avoid fasting. Those with type 1 diabetes or who are insulin dependent need medical supervision. Pregnant or breastfeeding women should not fast. People who are underweight should not restrict calories further. And anyone with existing hormonal disorders should consult a doctor first. If you do fast, watch for warning signs. Persistent dizziness that does not go away. Heart palpitations that continue. Severe mood changes or unusual fatigue beyond the normal adaptation period are all signals to stop and seek medical advice. And when you break a longer fast, do it gradually. Eating too much too quickly after an extended fast can cause refeeding syndrome, where electrolytes shift dangerously. Start with smaller amounts of easily digestible food and work your way up. Now let us address something important: women and fasting and testosterone. As I mentioned earlier, women have much lower testosterone levels than men, typically between 15 and 70 nanograms per deciliter. But testosterone still matters for female health. It affects energy, mood, bone density, and libido. Here is the thing. Fasting affects women differently than men. Women's bodies appear to be more sensitive to caloric restriction. Extended fasting can affect menstrual cycles and other reproductive hormones like estrogen and progesterone. Some research on intermittent fasting in women has shown decreases in testosterone and something called the free androgen index. Interestingly, for women with PCOS, polycystic ovary syndrome, where testosterone is often abnormally high, this reduction might actually be beneficial. It could help improve menstrual regularity and other symptoms. But for women without PCOS, the effects of fasting on hormones are less straightforward. If you are a woman interested in fasting, consider starting with shorter fasting windows, perhaps 12 to 14 hours. Pay attention to your menstrual cycle and energy levels. And if you notice irregularities, consult with a healthcare provider. If there is enough interest, I can create a dedicated video exploring fasting and female hormones in more depth. Let me know in the comments if that would be helpful. So what have we learned? Fasting and testosterone is not a simple relationship. It is not just about levels going up or down. It is a dynamic two-phase process that reflects millions of years of human evolution. Here is the complete picture. During fasting, testosterone typically decreases. This is a normal survival response, not a malfunction. Your body is conserving resources and prioritizing essential functions. At the same time, your testosterone production system becomes more sensitive, primed to respond strongly when conditions improve. During refeeding, testosterone can surge, sometimes exceeding pre-fasting levels. This is your body shifting from conservation mode to building mode. The quality of your refeeding matters enormously. Adequate protein helps trigger the growth signals that support testosterone production. For men with excess body fat, fasting offers an additional long-term benefit by reducing aromatase activity and preserving more testosterone from being converted to estrogen. For women, the picture is different. Women are more sensitive to caloric restriction, and fasting can affect menstrual cycles and reproductive hormones. Women with PCOS might benefit from testosterone reduction, while others should approach fasting more cautiously. Some practical takeaways. Understand that temporary testosterone drops during fasting are normal and not permanent damage. Refeeding is not just the end of your fast. It is a crucial phase for hormonal recovery. Make sure to eat adequate protein when you break your fast. Shorter fasting periods, like 16 to 24 hours, are generally safer for most people than extended multi-day fasts. And if you have concerns about your hormones, get tested and work with a healthcare provider. Here is a question I want you to think about. Some experts recommend never fasting beyond 24 hours if you care about testosterone. Others point to research showing potential benefits at 72 hours and beyond. After watching this video, where do you stand? I would love to hear your perspective in the comments. If you know someone who has been worried about how fasting might affect their hormones, consider sharing this video with them. It might change how they think about the whole topic. Have you tried fasting yourself? What changes did you notice in your energy, mood, or overall sense of well-being? Share your experience below. I read every comment. And if you want to understand more about what happens in your body during the first 24 hours of fasting, I have a video that breaks that down in detail. You might find it helpful. Make sure to subscribe so you do not miss future videos exploring the science of fasting. There is so much more to discover about what your body is capable of when you give it the right conditions. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next one. You have your blood test results in your hand. You went through a few weeks of fasting, you followed through, you stayed consistent. And now you are looking at these numbers, expecting to see clear improvements across the board. But something feels off. One number went up when you thought it should go down. Another one barely moved. And you are standing there, wondering whether you did something wrong or whether the fasting is actually working at all. That confusion is more common than you think. And here is the thing, it does not mean something went wrong. It usually means something very interesting went right. When you fast, your blood does not just respond in a simple one-direction way. It goes through a series of changes that on the surface look contradictory. Some things go up when you expect them to go down. Some things stay still when you expect them to move. And some things shift in a direction that looks like a problem, but is actually a sign that your body is doing exactly what it was designed to do. Today, we are going to walk through 5 of these changes. 5 things that happen in your blood during fasting that look strange at first, but make complete sense once you understand the biology behind them. No complicated medical terms, no long lists of numbers. Just a clear explanation of what your blood is actually telling you and why it matters. Before we get into it, just a quick note. Everything in this video is meant for education only. If you have a medical condition, if you are on medication, or if you are pregnant, please talk to your doctor before making any changes to your diet. Fasting is not for everyone, and knowing your own situation is always the first step. Now, if you find this kind of content helpful and you want to keep understanding how your body actually works, hit the subscribe button and join the channel. If you have been here before, welcome back. Give this video a like before we go any further. It takes 2 seconds and it genuinely helps more people find this content. All right, let us get into the 5 things. The first thing that surprises a lot of people is what happens to sodium in their blood. Sodium is one of the minerals that keeps your body running properly. It controls how fluid moves around your body, helps your muscles contract, and makes sure signals travel correctly through your nerves. Most people associate low sodium with not eating enough salty food. So when they fast and discover their sodium levels have dropped, they assume it must be because they are not eating as much salt as usual. But that is not what is happening. And understanding the real reason changes everything about how you manage fasting. Insulin, the hormone your body releases after eating to handle sugar in your blood, has a second job that almost nobody talks about. It tells your kidneys to hold on to sodium. When insulin is high, your kidneys keep more sodium circulating in your blood. When insulin drops like it does during fasting, that instruction disappears, and your kidneys start releasing more sodium out through your urine. So the sodium is not going down because you stopped seasoning your food. It is leaving your body through a completely different route because the hormone that was keeping it in place is no longer around to give that instruction. This is why so many people feel dizzy, get a mild headache, or feel unusually tired in the first day or two of fasting. It has very little to do with willpower or with the body struggling. It has almost everything to do with this sodium shift caused by the drop in insulin. The good news is that it is entirely manageable. Drinking water with a small pinch of salt or having some broth can help replace what the kidneys are letting go. What makes this worth paying attention to is that it shows how deeply connected everything in your body actually is. Insulin is not just a blood sugar manager. It is a signal that touches your kidneys, your fluid balance, your mineral levels, and much more. When it drops during fasting, it does not just open the door for fat burning. It changes the operating conditions across multiple systems at once. The sodium drop is just the first visible sign of that shift happening. One thing to keep in mind here, if you are fasting and you feel dizzy or weak, the first move is not to push harder. Drink some water, add a small amount of salt, and give your body a few minutes. If the feeling does not ease up, break the fast and eat something. A good fasting practice should feel manageable. If it does not, that is important information worth paying attention to. The second thing that happens in your blood during fasting sounds almost impossible when you first hear it. Growth hormone, the hormone your body uses to build and maintain your muscles, bones, and tissues, rises significantly during fasting. Some research suggests it can increase several times above its usual level after around 24 hours without food. This is something that often gets mentioned when people talk about the benefits of fasting, and it is one of the reasons fasting is associated with muscle preservation rather than muscle loss. But here is the part that almost nobody mentions. At the same time that growth hormone is rising a related molecule called IGF, one which stands for insulin like growth factor 1, basically the signal that tells your cells to actually carry out the building work, goes down. So you have more of the hormone sending the command, but less of the messenger that delivers it. That seems like it should not make sense. And yet, it happens consistently. So what is going on? To understand it, you need to know how these two things are connected. Growth hormone is released by your brain and sent to your liver. Your liver is supposed to take that growth hormone and convert it into IGF-1, which is the active form that reaches your cells and tells them to grow and rebuild. But for the liver to do that conversion, it needs insulin to be present and working. When you fast, insulin drops. Without insulin, the liver cannot complete the conversion properly. So growth hormone goes up because the brain keeps sending the signal. But IGF-1 goes down because the middle step cannot happen without the ingredient that is currently missing. Growth hormone is like a message sent from headquarters. IGF-1 is the delivery that arrives at your door. During fasting, the messages keep going out, but the delivery system pauses because a key part of the process is temporarily on hold. Now, here is the part that makes this genuinely interesting rather than just confusing. Without IGF, one pulling it toward building new tissue growth hormone turns its attention to a different job. It helps your body hold on to the muscle you already have and encourages your fat cells to release stored energy. The same hormone in a different environment shifts its role entirely. And IGF-1 being lower is not simply neutral. Some research suggests that lower IGF-1 over short periods is connected to the body moving into what you might think of as a maintenance mode. Rather than adding new material, the body focuses on cleaning up and repairing what is already there. This is one of the reasons fasting is often connected to cellular health over the longer term. The body uses the quiet time to do internal work that it does not get to do when it is constantly in building and expansion mode. The third paradox is one that trips people up a lot when they start tracking their blood work closely. Triglycerides, which are fats stored in your blood that your body uses as a kind of ready-to-use fuel supply, go down during fasting. And the strange part is they go down at the exact same time your body is most actively breaking down and using fat for energy. On the surface, that seems backwards. If your body is running on fat, should there not be more fat moving around in your blood? Would fasting not increase your blood fat levels rather than lower them? Here is what is actually happening. When your body breaks down fat stored in your tissues, it does release that fat into the bloodstream. But from there, it does not just float around building up. It gets picked up almost immediately and sent to your liver and muscles to be converted into energy. The key word is converted. The fat moves through the system and gets used up before it can accumulate. Think of a busy factory running at full capacity. When the assembly line is moving fast, the raw materials coming in are being processed as quickly as they arrive. The warehouse is not filling up. It is actually getting emptier because everything is flowing through the production line. Triglycerides in your blood work the same way. When your body is actively burning fat, those materials get picked up and used so efficiently that the levels in your blood go down rather than up. There is also something else happening on the other side of the equation. When insulin is low, your liver naturally slows down its own production of triglycerides, so you have less being manufactured at the same time that more is being consumed. That combination is what drives the number down. This is actually one of the more consistent improvements people see when they practice fasting regularly. Lower triglycerides are generally associated with better heart health and a healthier overall fat balance in the blood. But what makes it interesting is the reason they fall. The body is not avoiding fat. It is using fat so efficiently that there is simply less of it sitting around doing nothing. And that distinction matters because it tells you something about how your metabolism is actually functioning rather than just what a single number happens to look like on a given day. And this connects directly to what we are going to look at next, because the triglyceride level has a strong and direct relationship with another blood marker that causes a lot of unnecessary worry. This is probably the paradox that causes the most alarm when people look at their blood test results. LDL, which is often referred to as bad cholesterol, does not always go down with fasting. It might stay roughly the same. It might even go up slightly. And for someone who expected their fasting efforts to produce a clear improvement in this number, that is genuinely confusing and sometimes worrying. But here is what the total LDL number on a standard blood test does not show you. LDL is not one single type of particle. It is a category that contains particles of very different sizes and densities. Some of those particles are small and compact. They tend to slip into the walls of your blood vessels more easily. They get damaged by oxygen more quickly, and they are more directly linked to heart health problems over time. Other particles are larger and lighter. They move through your bloodstream more smoothly and are considerably less likely to cause the same kind of damage. A standard blood test shows you the total amount of LDL. It does not tell you the ratio of small, dense particles to large, light ones. And that ratio matters more than most people realize. Here is where the triglycerides connection comes in. When triglycerides go down, which we just talked about, something tends to happen to the structure of LDL particles. They shift away from being small and dense toward being larger and lighter. The total count may not change much at all, but the proportion that carries higher risk decreases. Picture a crowd of people moving through a narrow hallway. If most of them are carrying sharp, heavy boxes, there is a much higher chance of something getting damaged or stuck. But if most of those same people are now carrying soft, lightweight bags, the crowd moves more safely, even though the total number of people is exactly the same. The LDL situation works in a similar way. So when you see your total LDL number staying flat or even moving up a little after fasting, it does not automatically mean your heart health has gotten worse. What matters more is looking at whether triglycerides have fallen, whether HDL, the protective form of cholesterol, has risen, and whether the overall balance of your lipid panel has shifted. Those changes together give you a much more accurate picture than the LDL number alone. This is one of the most practical things you can take away from this video. A standard lipid panel gives you useful starting information, but it is not the complete story. Learning to read the numbers in relation to each other rather than in isolation changes how you interpret your own health data in a significant way. The fifth and final paradox is one of the more counterintuitive things that happens in your blood during fasting. CRP, which stands for C-reactive protein, is a marker your doctor measures to get a sense of how much inflammation is going on inside your body. Your liver produces more of it when the immune system is activated, or when something is causing ongoing stress in your tissues. High CRP over long periods of time is linked to a wide range of chronic health conditions, including heart disease and joint problems. Here is the strange part. When you fast, your body is under real physiological pressure. Cortisol, the hormone your body uses to mobilize energy and manage internal stress, goes up. Your liver switches operating modes. Your hormones reorganize. By most standard assumptions, this kind of internal disruption should raise inflammation. And yet, with consistent fasting, CRP tends to go down. How does physiological pressure lead to less inflammation rather than more? The answer comes down to recognizing that there are two fundamentally different kinds of internal stress. One is short-term, controlled and temporary. The other is long-term, unresolved and ongoing. Fasting belongs to the first category, and these two types of stress have very different effects on the body. Think about what happens when you exercise. You put your muscles under real strain. Your heart rate goes up. Your body temperature rises. Small amounts of tissue experience stress. In the short term, this looks like your body is being pushed hard. But over time, consistent exercise reduces chronic inflammation and improves how your body handles stress overall. The short-term pressure actually trains the system to function better. Fasting works in a similar way. The internal pressure of going without food for a controlled period does not add to the kind of ongoing, low-level inflammation that damages the body over time. Instead, it gives your system a rest from some of the constant activity that keeps that background inflammation going. When you are eating frequently throughout the day, your blood sugar rises and falls repeatedly. Your insulin goes up and down. Your digestive system stays active almost continuously. Some of the cellular signals that promote inflammation get activated repeatedly throughout this process. Fasting gives the body a break from that cycle. When insulin stays low for a period of time, some of the pathways in your cells that trigger inflammation also become less active. Less insulin does not just reduce fat storage. It also turns down certain inflammatory signals that were quietly firing over and over throughout your normal eating day. The result is that CRP goes down. Not because the body has stopped responding to anything important, but because it has stepped back from a kind of background noise it was carrying all the time. And that background noise was contributing to inflammation without you ever noticing it was there. One thing worth being clear about here: this effect is connected to fasting, that is measured and consistent, and that happens in a person who has some baseline stability. If you are already sleeping poorly, running on high stress, or managing a health condition, adding fasting into that situation may not produce the same results. Your body needs some foundation of stability to get the full benefits that controlled fasting can offer. And for certain groups, including people who are pregnant, those managing insulin dependent diabetes, anyone with a history of disordered eating, and people with chronic kidney conditions, extended fasting is not appropriate without direct medical supervision. If you fall into any of those categories, please work with your healthcare provider before making changes to your eating patterns. Now, before we wrap up, I want to ask you something directly, and I genuinely want to hear your answer. Out of these 5 things we covered today, which one surprised you the most? Was it learning that sodium drops, not because of how much salt you eat, but because of how insulin talks to your kidneys? Was it the growth hormone paradox where the command goes out louder, but the delivery never arrives? Was it finding out that your body can burn fat at full speed while the fat level in your blood actually goes down? Or maybe it was the LDL story, where the total number stays the same, but the quality inside that number quietly improves. Or the last one, where the body experiences pressure, but inflammation goes down anyway. Leave your answer in the comments below. Seriously, one word or one sentence is enough. Which one hit you differently? Your comment might be exactly what someone else needs to read to finally make sense of their own results. If this video gave you a clearer picture of what is happening inside your body, go ahead and hit the like button right now. It genuinely helps other people find content like this, and it takes no time at all. And if you know someone who has been confused by their blood work after fasting, or someone who keeps hearing conflicting things about cholesterol and triglycerides and does not know what to believe, share this video with them. A clear explanation of the why behind these numbers changes everything about how people approach their health. Here is the bigger picture worth holding on to as you walk away from this video. Your blood is not a simple pass or fail report card. It is a snapshot of a system that is always adjusting, always responding to the conditions you create for it. A single number in isolation rarely tells the whole story. Sodium growth hormone triglycerides, LDL, CRP, these are not just separate data points sitting next to each other on a page. They are part of ongoing conversations your body is having with itself. And once you know what those conversations actually mean, you can look at your own results with a lot more clarity and a lot less unnecessary worry. What fasting does is shift those conversations in a direction that for many people represents a genuine improvement in how the body functions day to day. Not because it is a magic solution, but because it gives the body a break from certain kinds of constant activity and lets it reorganize itself. The blood changes we talked about today are part of that reorganization. And now that you understand what they mean, you are in a much better position to look at your own results and actually understand what you are seeing. If you want to keep exploring how your body works, subscribe to the channel. We cover the science in the same way we did today, clear grounded and as straightforward as the evidence allows. See you in the next one. Have you ever wondered why some days you wake up full of energy, ready to take on the world, while other days you feel drained from morning to night? You eat the same foods, you sleep the same hours, yet your energy levels seem completely unpredictable. The answer lies deep inside every single cell of your body. There are tiny structures there, invisible to the naked eye, that determine whether you feel vibrant or exhausted. They're called mitochondria. And what most people don't realize is that when you fast, you're not just burning fat. You're actually building more of these tiny energy factories. This process is called mitochondrial biogenesis. It's a scientific term that simply means the creation of new mitochondria. And the science behind it might change how you think about every meal you skip. Before we dive in, this is educational content, not medical advice. If you have any health conditions, please consult your doctor before trying any fasting protocol. So let's start with the basics. What exactly are mitochondria and why should you care about them? Inside almost every cell of your body, there are small structures responsible for producing more than 90% of the energy your body needs to function. From thinking to running, from breathing to digesting food, all of it requires energy. And that energy comes from mitochondria. Here's a number that might surprise you. A single liver cell can contain more than 2,000 mitochondria. Heart muscle cells have even more because the heart never stops working and needs constant energy. Your brain, which makes up only about 2% of your body weight, consumes roughly 20% of your total energy, all powered by mitochondria. Athletes tend to have more mitochondria in their muscle cells than sedentary people. This is one reason they can sustain intense physical activity for longer periods. The number and quality of your mitochondria directly influence how much energy you have available throughout the day. Now, how do these tiny structures actually produce energy? The process works like this. Mitochondria take glucose and fatty acids from the food you eat, combine them with oxygen, and through a series of chemical reactions, produce a molecule called ATP. ATP is the energy currency of your cells. Every movement, every thought, every heartbeat uses ATP. Here's what makes mitochondria so important. Without them, each molecule of glucose would only produce about 2 ATP. But with mitochondria, that same glucose molecule produces around 32 ATP. That's 15 times more energy. Without mitochondria, we wouldn't have enough energy to maintain complex brain function or sustain muscle movement. We simply couldn't exist as we are. And here's something fascinating about where mitochondria come from. About 2 billion years ago, our ancient cellular ancestors engulfed bacteria that were very efficient at producing energy. Instead of digesting these bacteria, the cells formed a partnership with them. Over billions of years of evolution, those bacteria became what we now call mitochondria. The evidence for this is remarkable. Mitochondria have their own DNA separate from the DNA in your cell's nucleus. This mitochondrial DNA is inherited only from your mother, and mitochondria replicate by dividing just like bacteria do. This ancient origin explains why mitochondria respond to fasting the way they do. It's a survival mechanism that has been preserved across billions of years of evolution. So why does the number and quality of your mitochondria matter so much? People with more healthy mitochondria tend to have more abundant energy and better endurance. They recover faster from physical activity. Their cells function more efficiently. On the other hand, when damaged mitochondria accumulate in your cells, several problems arise. They produce less energy. They generate more waste products called reactive oxygen species or free radicals. These free radicals can damage other parts of your cells and contribute to aging and disease. Research has shown that mitochondrial decline is associated with aging, heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and neurodegenerative conditions like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease. The connection is clear. Healthy mitochondria mean a healthier you. The good news is that your body has the ability to build new mitochondria. and fasting is one of the most powerful ways to activate this process. So, how exactly does fasting unlock this hidden cellular power? It all begins with a brilliant biological strategy. When food becomes scarce, your body shifts from growth mode into repair and optimization mode. This calorie restriction activates critical molecular pathways that essentially flip the biogenesis switch inside your cells. Let's trace this journey step by step from the initial hunger signal all the way to the creation of new mitochondria. In the first 0 to 12 hours of fasting, as you stop eating, glucose levels in your blood begin to drop. Your cells sense this energy shortage through a protein called AMPK, which stands for AMP activated protein kinase. Think of AMPK as your cell's fuel gauge. When fuel runs low, AMPK sounds the alarm. It's an ancient cellular sensor that has been conserved across evolution. It exists in yeast in worms and in humans. The fact that this same molecule exists in such different organisms tells us something important. This is a fundamental survival mechanism that life has preserved for hundreds of millions of years. When AMPK is activated, it initiates a cascade of responses. It shuts down energy consuming processes that aren't immediately necessary, like cell growth and fat storage. It ramps up processes that generate energy and repair cellular damage. It signals the cell to start using stored fat as fuel. This is the first domino in the chain that leads to mitochondrial biogenesis. Between 12 and 24 hours of fasting, AMPK activates a crucial partner called SIRT1, also known as sirtuin-1. Sirtuin is an enzyme belonging to a family often called longevity genes. Research has shown that sirtuins are connected to lifespan extension in multiple species. Why are they called longevity genes? Studies on various organisms from yeast to mice have shown that increased sirtuin activity is associated with longer lifespan. Calorie restriction, which has been shown to extend life in many species, works partly through activating these sirtuins. SIRT1 requires a molecule called NAD+ to function. NAD+ is a coenzyme found in all living cells, and it plays a critical role in energy metabolism. During fasting, NAD+ levels in your cells increase. This rise in NAD+ wakes up SIRT1 and allows it to begin its work. SIRT1 then adjusts various factors that help your cells shift into repair and optimization mode. The partnership between AMPK and SIRT1 is beautifully coordinated. AMPK senses the energy shortage and begins the response. SIRT1 amplifies and extends that response. Together, they prepare the cell for what comes next. Now comes the critical step. When AMPK and SIRT1 work together, they activate something called PGC1 alpha. This is where the real magic happens. In 1998, a researcher named Bruce Spiegelman at Harvard was studying brown fat tissue, the type of fat that generates heat to keep you warm. During his research, he discovered a molecule that seemed to control whether cells produced more mitochondria or not. He named it PGC1 alpha. Spiegelman later said in an interview, "When we discovered PGC1 alpha, people weren't even looking for something like that." But there must be many more dynamic molecules that can switch cell biology that have yet to be discovered. Today, PGC1 alpha is recognized as the master regulator of mitochondrial biogenesis. It's found in tissues with high energy demands, particularly in muscle, heart, brain, and brown fat tissue. When AMPK and SIRT1 unlock PGC1 alpha, it sends a clear signal to your cells. Start building more mitochondria. What makes PGC1 alpha so powerful is that it doesn't just do one thing. It coordinates an entire program of cellular changes. It increases the expression of genes needed for mitochondrial proteins. It enhances the capacity for oxidative metabolism. It improves the cell's ability to handle oxidative stress. It's like a conductor directing an entire orchestra of cellular processes. This isn't just about flipping a switch. There's an entire complex network at work. The intricate choreography of enzymes and proteins is what truly enhances your cellular power, going far beyond simply using existing energy. Let's follow the journey from that initial signal to the actual creation of new mitochondria. When PGC1 alpha is activated, it doesn't directly build mitochondria itself. Instead, it awakens transcription factors proteins that control which genes get turned on or off. The key players here are RF1 and NRF2, which stand for nuclear respiratory factors. Think of these as the architects directing the assembly of new mitochondrial components. There's also TFAM, which stands for transcription factor A, mitochondrial. This factor is especially important because it controls the replication of mitochondrial DNA. Here's how the process unfolds. PGCN1 alpha activates RF1 and NRF2. These factors then activate genes in the cell nucleus that code for mitochondrial proteins. At the same time, TFM is produced and enters existing mitochondria to replicate mitochondrial DNA. The result is that proteins from both the nucleus and the mitochondria are created and assembled into new mitochondria. Between 24 and 48 hours of fasting, this construction process reaches its peak. New mitochondria don't appear instantly. It takes time. Mitochondrial DNA is duplicated. New proteins are synthesized. New mitochondrial membranes are formed. The electron transport chain where ATP is actually produced is assembled. During this window, existing mitochondria also get upgraded. They become more efficient at producing energy. But here's something important. It's not just about making more mitochondria. It's also about making better ones. Your body has a quality control system. Damaged or dysfunctional mitochondria are identified and removed through a process called mitophagy. This is essentially your cells digesting and recycling old broken down mitochondria. In 2023, researchers at UCLA made a surprising discovery. They found that fasting increases mitochondrial fission, which is the process of mitochondria splitting apart. This contradicted earlier studies done on cells grown in laboratory dishes. The researchers explained that in a living organism, cells interact with each other in ways that don't happen in isolated cell cultures. This increased splitting during fasting helps mitochondria adapt better to burning fat for fuel when food isn't available. The end result of all this: not just more mitochondria, but healthier, more efficient mitochondria. So what does all this mean for you in your daily life? Understanding the science is one thing, but what does this translate to in practical terms? Let's look at the real impacts. First, improved energy. When your mitochondrial density increases, your metabolic efficiency improves dramatically. Imagine having abundant energy throughout the day. What does this look like in real life? More stable energy throughout the day. Less of that afternoon slump where you feel like you need coffee just to function. Faster recovery after physical activity. Better ability to handle stress. Improved physical performance, whether that's in the gym playing sports or simply keeping up with your kids. Many people report that after a few weeks of practicing intermittent fasting, they no longer depend on caffeine to maintain their energy levels. The reason is straightforward. Healthier mitochondria produce ATP more efficiently and generate fewer harmful byproducts. Second, brain function. Your brain is the most energy-hungry organ in your body. It consumes about 20% of your total energy despite being only 2% of your body weight. Healthy mitochondria in brain cells mean improved cognitive function. Research has shown several benefits. Better ability to focus and concentrate. Improved memory. Reduction in brain fog, that feeling of mental cloudiness that makes it hard to think clearly. Additionally, fasting increases production of something called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. This protein supports the growth of new nerve cells and the connections between them. Third, long-term benefits. Here's where the science becomes truly compelling. Mitochondrial decline is one of the hallmarks of aging. As we get older, our mitochondria tend to become less numerous and less efficient. They accumulate damage. They produce less ATP and more harmful byproducts. This mitochondrial decay contributes to the fatigue, weakness, and cognitive decline that often accompany aging. Maintaining healthy mitochondrial density can slow the aging process at the cellular level. Studies in animals have shown that activating PGC1 alpha extends lifespan. While human studies are ongoing, the evidence strongly suggests that mitochondrial health is a key factor in how well we age. Mitochondrial dysfunction is also connected to many chronic diseases: heart disease, type 2 diabetes, neurodegenerative conditions like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. Even certain cancers have all been linked to problems with mitochondrial function. By improving mitochondrial health through fasting, you may reduce your risk of developing these conditions. This makes fasting a truly comprehensive health strategy, not just a weight loss technique. Now, an important note. Fasting is not a cure-all. It's not a magic solution that fixes everything. It's a strategy that supports overall health. It doesn't replace medical treatment when you need it. So how can you apply this knowledge safely? Are you ready to harness this cellular potential? Let me share some practical information about how to integrate fasting into your routine in a way that aligns with the science we've discussed. There are different approaches to fasting that can stimulate mitochondrial biogenesis. Intermittent fasting is the most accessible. The 16-8 method, where you fast for 16 hours and eat within an 8-hour window, is the most popular. This is enough to activate AMPK and start the signaling cascade. It's suitable for beginners and can be practiced daily. Longer fasts of 24 to 48 hours activate PGC1 alpha and the biogenesis process more powerfully. These should be done less frequently, perhaps once or twice a month, and require proper preparation and understanding. Here's the key point. You don't need extended fasts to get benefits. Even daily intermittent fasting activates these pathways to a meaningful degree. However, fasting isn't appropriate for everyone. You should not fast or should only do so under medical supervision if you are pregnant, or breastfeeding if you have a history of eating disorders, if you have type 1 diabetes, or are taking insulin, if you are underweight with a BMI below 18.5, or if you have chronic kidney disease. Watch for these warning signs that mean you should stop fasting immediately. Severe dizziness that doesn't go away after drinking water and electrolytes. Rapid heartbeat or unusual heart palpitations. Confusion or severe difficulty concentrating. Fainting or feeling like you're about to faint. If any of these symptoms persist for more than 30 minutes despite proper hydration, stop fasting and consult a healthcare professional. To optimize the benefits of fasting, stay properly hydrated and maintain electrolyte balance with adequate salt, potassium, and magnesium. Consider combining fasting with light exercise, as physical activity also activates PGC1 alpha. Make sure you're getting proper nutrition during your eating windows. Get enough sleep, as sleep quality also affects mitochondrial health. If you're new to fasting, start gradually. Begin with 12 hours and slowly extend the fasting period as your body adapts. Remember, fasting isn't about deprivation. It's about activating the upgrade program that your body already has built in. By understanding the mechanism, you can use it safely and effectively. Let's bring this all together. Mitochondria are the core energy source of your body. Without them, complex life as we know it wouldn't be possible. They are truly the invisible engines that power everything you do. Fasting activates a signaling cascade that flows from AMPK to SIRT1 to PGC1 alpha to NRF1 and NRF2, ultimately leading to the creation of new mitochondria. Each step in this cascade amplifies the signal, creating a powerful response to the simple act of not eating. This isn't theory. This is science that has been demonstrated through research at Harvard, UCLA, and leading research centers around the world. The practical results are more energy, better health, and slower aging. Every time you fast, you're not just not eating. You're sending a signal to billions of cells in your body. Build, repair, optimize. Your body is more intelligent than you might realize. It still remembers how to respond to periods without food. This is a survival mechanism preserved across millions of years of evolution. Our ancestors didn't have constant access to food. They went through regular cycles of feast and famine, and their bodies adapted to thrive in both states. In our modern world of constant food availability, we've lost touch with this ancient rhythm. Fasting is a way to reconnect with it. It's not about deprivation or punishment. It's about giving your body the signal it needs to activate its built-in repair and optimization programs. Knowledge is power. By understanding how your body works, you can unlock a new source of energy and vitality. Here's a question for you. Have you ever noticed your energy levels change after trying intermittent fasting? Share your experience in the comments below. And here's something to think about. Some researchers believe everyone should practice some form of fasting. Others say the benefits are overstated. What's your take? Is fasting essential for mitochondrial health, or are there other ways to achieve similar benefits? Let me know what you think. If this video helped you understand your body better, please like and subscribe to the channel. We have more content on biological optimization waiting for you. If you know someone who practices fasting but doesn't understand why it works, share this video with them. They'll finally understand what's happening inside their cells. In our next video, we'll explore what happens to your brain when you fast. The results might surprise you. Remember this: a period without food doesn't weaken you. It reveals the strength and intelligence your body has had all along. You're not just skipping meals. You're upgrading your cellular machinery, one mitochondrion at a time.
A lot of people have had this experience. You try to eat better. You cut out the fried food. You go lighter on the fatty stuff. And then you go in for a checkup. And your doctor tells you the same thing as last time. Your liver still has too much fat in it. And you are sitting there thinking, what am I actually missing here? Here is what most people have never been told. Most of the fat sitting inside your liver did not come from the fat you ate. It was made by your liver itself, from something else entirely. And once you understand what that something else is and how to slow that process down, the whole picture starts to make a lot more sense. A real clinical study followed people for just 14 days and found that liver fat dropped by nearly 44%. And the part that surprises almost everyone, those people were still eating over 3,000 calories a day. No starvation, no extreme restriction, just a change in what kind of food was going in. In this video, I want to walk you through exactly what is happening inside your liver, why it ends up holding so much fat, and what the science says about how the body can start reversing that. This is educational content, not medical advice. If you have been told you have a liver condition, please talk to your doctor before making any changes. Before we get into the science, if you find videos like this helpful, where we go through the research in plain language without all the noise, consider subscribing right now and hitting the like button. It genuinely helps this kind of content reach more people who need it. And if anything in this video surprises you, drop it in the comments below. I always read them, and I would love to know what stands out. Now, let us start with something that most people do not know about the liver. And it is the kind of thing that changes how you see the whole situation once you hear it. Your liver is one of the hardest working organs in your body. Everything you eat, everything you drink, every substance that gets absorbed through your gut goes through your liver before it goes anywhere else. It is like the body's main processing center, and it works around the clock without rest. It handles hundreds of different jobs at the same time, from filtering what should not be in your blood, to producing substances your body needs, to managing how energy is stored and released. But here is the thing that catches most people off guard. Your liver has no pain receptors. It cannot send you a distress signal the way your stomach does when it is upset, or your muscles do when they are sore. When something is going wrong inside your liver, it mostly stays quiet. You do not feel it. There is no alarm. There is no clear warning coming from the liver itself. This is why researchers have found that the vast majority of adults with fatty liver disease have no idea they have it. We are talking about a condition that affects somewhere close to 1 in 3 people globally, and yet most of them walk around completely unaware. Not because they are careless about their health, but because the liver simply never told them. So by the time someone gets a diagnosis, the fat has often been building up for years. Not because they were doing something dramatically wrong, but because they were doing something that their body was not quite designed to handle at this scale. To understand that, we need to talk about what the liver actually does with the food you eat, and why it ends up making fat in the first place. Think of your liver as a room with a thermostat. After you eat, especially something starchy or sweet, a hormone called insulin rises in your bloodstream. Insulin is what tells your body that energy has just arrived and it is time to store and process it. In our thermostat picture, insulin is like the temperature being turned up high, and when the temperature is high, the room stays locked. Fat that is already inside the liver cannot leave. The liver is busy processing incoming food and tucking things away for later. When you have not eaten for a while, insulin drops. The temperature cools down. And that is when the body can finally start pulling from what it has already stored. The room opens up. The problem for many people today is that the thermostat barely gets a chance to cool down. They eat throughout the day, often foods that cause insulin to rise quickly and repeatedly. And so the liver stays in that locked, accumulating state for most of the day. Over months and years, that adds up. But here is where the picture gets really interesting, and where most people have been thinking about this all wrong. When people hear the words fatty liver, the natural assumption is that the fat got there from eating fatty food. That seems logical, but research tells a different story. A large portion of the fat accumulating inside the liver was actually produced by the liver itself, from sugar and refined carbohydrates. Your liver has the ability to take excess sugar that you have eaten, sugar your body does not immediately need for energy, and convert it into fat right there on the spot. Scientists call this process de novo lipogenesis, which is just a Latin phrase meaning making new fat from scratch. You do not need to remember the term, but you do need to understand what it means in real life, because it changes everything about how you approach this. Every time you eat a significant amount of sugar or refined starch, and your body has more coming in than it can immediately use, your liver can start converting that leftover sugar into fat and storing it locally in its own cells. Again, this is not a mistake in your biology. In the distant past, when food was unpredictable and sometimes scarce, this ability to rapidly store energy was an enormous survival advantage. The challenge is that we are no longer living in that world. We live in a world where sugar and refined carbohydrates are available at every meal, in nearly every packaged product, in drinks that seem harmless, and in foods marketed as healthy. The liver's fat production system was built for occasional overflow. In many modern diets, it runs almost continuously. Think about it this way. Imagine a small workshop that was designed to run a few hours a week, handling occasional overflow. But now it is being asked to run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, with raw materials arriving in a constant stream. The workshop keeps going, it keeps producing, and eventually everything it makes gets stacked in the only place available, which is the building itself. That is what happens inside the liver when it is being given more sugar than the body can use. What makes this especially worth understanding is that the liver's fat production system was never designed for the food environment most of us live in now. It was built to handle occasional surges, not a continuous daily stream. A piece of fruit here and there, a meal with some starch when food was available. The system could handle that. What it struggles with is the pattern of modern eating, where refined sugar appears in nearly everything, where sweetened drinks are the norm, and where a single afternoon can involve more sugar than someone in a previous era might have encountered in a week. Fructose, the type of sugar found in sodas, commercial fruit juices, many condiments, and a wide range of processed foods, is especially efficient at driving this process. Unlike regular glucose, which is distributed throughout the body and used by muscles and organs everywhere, fructose is routed almost entirely to the liver. More than 90% of it goes directly there. And once fructose arrives, the liver has no real mechanism to slow the process down. The production line turns on automatically. The 14-day study we mentioned earlier found something striking here. When participants significantly reduced their carbohydrate intake, the rate at which the liver was manufacturing new fat dropped by nearly 80%. Not 20, not 30, nearly 80. The workshop went from running at full capacity around the clock to operating at a fraction of that. And once it stopped adding new fat at that rate, the liver began burning through what it already had stored. Now here is the part of the story that catches a lot of people off guard, and it is probably the most important thing to hold on to if you ever try making a change yourself. When you first start reducing carbohydrates or adjusting your eating in a way that keeps insulin lower for longer periods, the scale often does not move much in the early days. And for many people, that feels like proof that nothing is working. They get discouraged, go back to their old habits, and never find out what would have happened if they had kept going. But here is what the science shows. In that 14 days study, the average weight loss among participants was less than 2% of body weight. Waist measurements barely changed. And yet, liver fat had already dropped by nearly 44%. The body was doing exactly what it was supposed to do. It was quietly addressing the most medically urgent fat first, the fat stored inside the organs, before it moved on to the more visible fat elsewhere. So what can you actually pay attention to in the first week, when the scale is being unhelpful? Your body does send signals during this time. They are just quieter than a number. A lot of people who make changes that are good for the liver report that sleep begins to feel deeper within the first several days. Not because they read that this would happen, but because something genuinely shifts. The quality of rest improves in a way they can feel in the morning. The afternoon energy slump, that heavy and foggy stretch that tends to hit 1 or 2 hours after lunch, starts to ease. Digestion begins to feel lighter, less of that uncomfortable bloating and fullness that can linger for hours after a meal. Cravings for sweet things start to quiet down, not immediately, but gradually over several days of consistency. For many people, the first sign is simply that they stop thinking about snacks as often. These are subtle changes, but they are real ones. They are worth noticing because they mean something meaningful is shifting on the inside, even when the outside has not caught up yet. In a way, your body has been quietly communicating with you all along. It just took a change in direction to make the messages easier to hear. Another thing some people notice in the early days is that their skin starts to look slightly clearer, or that their eyes feel less puffy in the mornings. These are not universal experiences, but they come up often enough to be worth mentioning. The liver plays a direct role in filtering what circulates in the blood, and when it is under less strain, some of those downstream effects can start to ease relatively quickly. Now let us look at what the research actually found happening during those 14 days, because the timeline is genuinely remarkable. Within the first 24 to 72 hours of significantly reducing carbohydrate intake, insulin levels begin to fall. The liver starts receiving less of the raw material it uses to manufacture new fat. And something that genuinely surprised the researchers, changes in the community of bacteria living inside the gut, began appearing within just 1 day of changing the diet. One of the most interesting findings was a rapid increase in bacteria that produce a nutrient called folate. Folate plays a role in helping the liver process fat and manage inflammation. One of the most interesting findings was a rapid increase in bacteria that produce a nutrient called folate. Folate plays a role in helping the liver process fat and manage inflammation. When folate levels in the blood rise, the liver is better supported in doing its cleanup work. It is one of those unexpected connections that reminds you how deeply the gut and the liver are linked. They are not separate systems operating independently. They are in constant back and forth communication, and what you put into one affects how the other performs. The researchers found that 94 different types of gut bacteria had shifted within just 2 weeks, with some of the earliest changes happening within the first day. The gut and the liver are in constant communication through the body's internal systems, and it appears that when you change what you feed the gut, it responds almost immediately. By the end of the first week, something even more significant was happening. The liver had shifted into a very different operating mode. Instead of accumulating fat, it was now burning it, and not at a modest rate. The speed at which the liver was breaking down its stored fat for energy increased by roughly 5 times compared to before. That is not a small shift. The liver had gone from being a place where fat was building up to a place where fat was actively being used as fuel. By the end of 2 weeks, liver fat had dropped by nearly 44% on average. Markers of liver inflammation had improved. The body's response to insulin had become more efficient. And all of this happened in people who were eating more than 3,000 calories per day. This was not about eating less, it was entirely about changing what the liver was being asked to work with. Now, the study used a specific approach that kept carbohydrate intake very low. But it is worth stepping back and looking at the actual biological mechanism, because it is more important than the name of any particular diet. What creates the conditions for liver improvement is this. You keep insulin lower more consistently throughout the day, and you reduce the main ingredient that fuels the liver's fat production, which is an excess of rapidly digested carbohydrates, especially sugar and refined starch. That is the core of it. Different approaches can achieve that same underlying shift. Some people reduce carbohydrates significantly without following a strict protocol. Some use a form of time-restricted eating, where they concentrate their meals into a shorter window each day, which naturally gives insulin more time to stay low between meals. Some focus primarily on eliminating the biggest contributors: sweetened drinks, white bread, processed snack foods, and packaged foods with added sugar, without labeling what they are doing. Some combine two or more of these approaches in a way that feels sustainable for their life. The point is not to find the one correct method. The point is to understand the direction you are moving in and why. When you understand that the liver's fat production is driven largely by excess refined carbohydrates, and that insulin is the key signal keeping fat locked in storage, the choices you make start to have a logic behind them. And choices made with a reason behind them tend to stick better than rules followed without understanding. There are some situations that deserve specific mention because they affect how someone might approach this. If you are managing diabetes and take insulin or medication that lowers blood sugar, changing the amount of carbohydrates you eat will affect how that medication works. This does not mean dietary changes are off the table. It means they need to happen with your doctor aware and involved, so adjustments can be made safely. If you take blood pressure medication, it is worth knowing that reducing carbohydrates can lower blood pressure fairly quickly in some people. Your doctor should be in the loop. If you have had your gallbladder removed, you can still work toward improving your liver. But because the gallbladder normally helps regulate the release of bile, which assists in digesting fat, it is generally a good idea to increase fat intake gradually and pay attention to how digestion responds, rather than making very sudden changes. And if you have already been told you have significant scarring or advanced disease in the liver, that is a situation where medical supervision is not optional. The liver at that stage needs careful, monitored support. For most people, though, the liver is far more capable of recovery than it often gets credit for. It is not a passive organ that simply stays in whatever condition it has drifted into. Given the right conditions, it responds. It adapts. And the research keeps showing that it can do so quite quickly. There is one more thing worth mentioning, because it often goes unnoticed. Many of the symptoms people associate with other parts of their health are actually connected to how the liver is functioning. Persistent bloating after meals, not just occasionally but regularly. Fatigue that sleep does not fully fix. Difficulty keeping blood pressure stable. A kind of mental fog in the afternoons that makes concentration harder than it should be. These do not automatically mean the liver is the cause, but they are worth knowing about because they often improve when liver health improves, reflecting just how central the liver is to how the whole body operates. Before we close, here is the question I want to leave you with, and I genuinely want to hear your answer in the comments below. Think about your daily eating right now, just an honest look at it. If you had to guess, what is the one thing you consume most regularly that might be feeding the liver's fat production the most? It does not need to be a certain answer, just your honest best guess based on what you have heard today. I ask because the answers in these comments are often the most useful part of the whole video. Real people, real situations, real questions. And your answer might be exactly what someone else reading the comments needed to see today. If this video helped something click for you, a like helps more people find it. If you know someone who has been told they have a liver issue and does not quite know where to start, sharing this with them is probably more useful than anything else you could send. Here is a debate that is genuinely still open in the research world. Some scientists believe the specific type of low-carbohydrate diet matters a great deal, and that the ketogenic approach has unique advantages for the liver beyond just lowering insulin. Others believe that any approach which keeps insulin consistently lower throughout the day will produce comparable results over time. Both sides have evidence. Neither has a definitive final answer yet. I would love to know where you come down on that. The most important thing to take away from all of this is straightforward. The liver has a real capacity to recover. That recovery can begin faster than most people expect. It does not require perfection. It does not require suffering. It requires understanding what is driving the problem and making consistent choices that move in a different direction. If you want to keep exploring the science behind how your body works, in plain language, without the noise, make sure you are subscribed. There is a lot more coming, and I think you will find it worth staying for.